Yo, yo, yo. This is Candy B Knittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. And today I also be doing a little bit of follow up on some things I've shown y'all in the past. First thing I want to show y'all something that is damp. So I'm going to show y'all really quick and then move on to some other things. This, I don't think I ever showed it on YouTube, but I have shown it on Instagram. I went to a yarn swap and I've been going to these regularly. It's local to me, and you bring whatever extra yarn you want to get rid of, and you take whatever yarn that you want to take. And I was at the yarn swap, and my eyes went doo 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 doo, and there was this crinkled up mass, and I was just like, that looks like someone's first spinning project. It was like super duper coiled single ply yarn, and it was like the hank itself was like about half this size, so I could tell someone like had wrapped it around their elbow, and so it was just like all balled up like this. I'm gonna post pictures on my Instagram so you can see the whole process. And I was thinking to myself, one of the some of the advice I see online a lot of times is if either your yarn is overplied or your single is overspun, you can run it through your machine, your e-spinner, your wheel, whatever, backward, and it'll take the extra twist out. And to me, that always sounded like I'm going to make a tangled mess doing that, because I know when I'm just spinning normally, if my wheel starts going the opposite direction, the yarn just becomes tangled all about it and things start falling apart. And so I was just like, oh, someone's getting rid of this. It's free. This will be a great experiment with this theory. And as you can see, this is not a big tangled overspun mess. There are still some areas where it's still a bit overspun because I was a bit nervous because it is single ply, but it worked. It took a little bit to get on the leader, just because it's twisting the opposite direction, but once I got the take up to go, I could see the yarn relaxing as it went back onto the bobbin. And it's damp because I ran it one time through, and then I wound it onto my nitty knotty, and then I finished the yarn by fulling it, alternating between hot and cold water, and then thwacking it because it is a single ply, and so it gives it a little bit of strength to finish it in that manner. And tomorrow I am going to another yarn swap, so I'm going to take this back to the yarn swap because my experiment is done. I don't really have a need for this yarn. It's kind of like it looks like it was like red and blue, and then as they spun it, it kind of came together in some purpley areas. But I just appreciated the ability to do that experiment, and so I will be passing this on to the next person now that I'm done with it. But that works, and so I will be using that in the future if my singles become overspun. I've got yarn that I've plied that is overspun in some places, and I have yarn that's plied and is plied loosely, and I think I can maybe fix it by tightening up the ply. So if you're a spinner, there you go. Another epilogue follow-up on a finished project. If you will remember, I knitted a sweater for my 5-year-old over the Christmas break, and I used a mystery yarn from a craft thrift store, and I did the burn test on it, and it melted the same way I would expect any acrylic yarn to melt. And so I felt like I was good to go to knit a sweater for a child that could end up in the washing machine. Long story short, it ended up in the washing machine, and it appears to be incredibly felted the way you would expect wool to. And not only that, the purple has bled significantly. So a little bummed out, but I did want to just show y'all, what happened to that sweater. I did wash it in some hair conditioner to kind of help a little bit, and she's still small, so this still technically fits her, but I just will not get as many seasons out of it as I had thought, and it'll probably end up getting donated sooner rather than later. But I'm going to try to wash it again with some color catchers, because this is definitely acrylic yarn. And so I think some of the bleeding will come out of this yarn up here, and I can clean it up a little bit. But yeah, just a little bummed out. But the moral of the story here, and the tip for y'all, is I should have not just done the burn test. I should have knitted a swatch and put the swatch in the washing machine to see what was going to happen. But rather learn that lesson on a small child sweater than if I had knit a large garment for myself out of this. So word to the wise. I don't think she's not terribly picky with her clothes, so I don't think she's too upset about it. She did put it on. She was like, this feels tight. And I was like, yeah, it shrunk. And so, like I said, we're in March now, so it is warming up outside. So I'll probably try to clean it up a little bit and keep it for next winter. And she may or may not be able to fit it next winter, and then it might have to go to a smaller child. But still a functional sweater, but just a little confused and bummed out that it would. I don't know if y'all can really tell, but it's like stiff, and it feels like a felted wool sweater, even though I know it might have had just enough wool content. I'm not sure, or just the way that it was spun all thick and thin. But now I know. This is like just basically a giant swatch for this yarn now, because I do have more of this yarn left over. I do have some finished objects. I showed y'all those bibs last time I was working on, and I just improvised a bib pattern that I saw that someone at church had made. I showed y'all this one last week. It's got ribbing, and then you cast off half the stitches, and then you continue like this. So I did 2 with garter stitch, and then I did one more, and this is just worsted weight cotton dishcloth yarn, and then I did one with stockinette, because the thing with stockinette, it does curl when you do stockinette flat, but at the same time the worsted weight yarn is so heavy that the drape of it keeps it from looking super duper curled and messy the way some other yarns would be. And so I told y'all I know a couple of folks that are having babies, and so these are gonna get gifted, so I just wanted to show y'all these before I gave them away. And these are all washed. I just washed them and laid them flat so they, just don't look all super rumpled. And then I finished my second pair of socks for the year, and this is just a 64 stitch sock, vanilla sock. Half of it is they're both Lion Brand sockies, but they're 2 different colorways. So this top area is one colorway, this area down here is another one, and then the toe goes back to this contrasting color. And this is actually going to get gifted as well. I was just kind of experimenting with different sock constructions. So those are my finished objects, and now we're gonna bounce back to revisiting old knitting patterns. I didn't really plan out like an overall topic for this episode, so I'm just randomly showing you things. So I had previously shown you this yarn. I actually just saw it on Instagram. It's called Dying for Art, and it is local to me, and I think she doesn't have any like web presence. She literally just does trunk shows, and she did a trunk show at Dances with Wool, which is one of my local yarn stores, and I had gotten this at a trunk show and didn't have the ball band anymore, and then literally it popped back up on my Instagram that she was doing another trunk show, and I was like, that's the yarn I had, because I recognized the label. But these were knit into like 2 or 3 years ago, the first socks I ever knit for myself, and I ended up unraveling them because they were too loose. And so I unraveled them, washed it, but they had been socks for a couple of years, so the yarn obviously is crinkled, it's faded in some places, but I had this other half of the ball, or the original skein, left over, and so I decided the best thing to do, I didn't necessarily want some faded yarn that I had been walking around on for a couple of years to go into like a sweater yoke, so I was like, I'm going to put them back into socks, but just in case this one is a little worn out, I'm gonna combine it and hold it. And so I'm making my first DK weight socks. I'm holding the 2 fingering weight threads together, and this is the Rye sock by TinCanKnits. So it has that garter stitch panel in the front of the sock. The rest of it's stockinette. I'm doing 54 stitches on no, actually not 54. I started off with 54 stitches and it was way too big. I went down to 48 stitches, and I'm doing these on, I believe, 2¼ millimeter needles. I think a size, don't get me started with US to millimeter, but the pattern I believe calls for 2½ millimeters, and I only had 2¼ millimeters because I have like the most random set of DPNs that I got from Amazon. And knitting it mostly to pattern, I figured, the texture would add a little bit of interest to just doing vanilla socks. I kind of want to branch out from that. And then the other change in the pattern, they just have you knit the heel flap in stockinette. And the first time, I believe it was on the socks that I knit with it. I feel like it was my first pair of socks. And I think it was with this yarn. I was knitting a heel flap, and I was like, my heel flap looks weird. There's something off about this. No. And I realized that it was supposed to be like a slip stitch heel. And I was like, oh, darn. And so my heel, not only was the overall sock baggy, but it was, the heel was kind of baggy too. And adding the slip stitches in gives it a little bit of strength too, because it just tightens up the gauge a little bit more. And so the Rye pattern, I'm assuming, is geared towards more beginners, and so they don't try to introduce you to too many techniques. And so I assume that's why there's a stockinette heel flap in the pattern. But for me, I was just like, I'm just going to go ahead and do a slip stitch. And so I'm doing a slip stitch. And so that's the only real difference I'm doing with this pattern. And so far, so good. It's going by very quick. It's very dense, squishy fabric. These will probably go into like my gardening boots. They're a bit too thick to go into a pair of sneakers. But I'm liking it so far. And I love the idea of taking a pair of socks that I wasn't really wearing, or I would, every few months I would pick them up and I'd be like, oh, why don't I wear these socks? And then I would put them on, like, oh, they're kind of loose. And I was just kind of like hoping something was going to happen, and it never did. And so I was like, I think it'd be better to knit them into something that I'm going to wear. So that's that. And I guess now I'll show y'all, we're moving right along. I'm going to follow up with a couple of other patterns I've been working on. This is where I left y'all last time. I was debating about this shawl. This is the Audrey shawl, and it's a free pattern. And last time I haven't gotten, it feels like I've gotten much farther, because it's like we're at over 400, probably at 450 stitches on this shawl. And I had finished this semicircle piece up here with the eyelet stripes, and I was going into some charted lace, and the charted lace was calling for 3 purl rows in a row, and I was just like, I don't want to purl 450 stitches 3 times in a row. And I did not take my advice. I was telling y'all I should have made a swatch and washed the swatch. This time I did think about what I should do as a knitter, and I pulled out a little bit of my dishcloth yarn and actually did up a swatch to see what the difference was, because as I was saying last week, I flubbed my words, but the spirit of it was there. I was thinking that you purl 3 rows in a row, you're going to end up with garter stitch. You knit 3 rows in a row, you'll end up with garter stitch. So I was just like, the look should be the same, but the reason it's not the same is because when you do, your yarn over for your lace, that's technically a knit stitch. So if you knit on the back of a knit stitch, you're going to end up with kind of a garter bump on the right side. And so very long story short, so I don't trip over my own vocabulary again, doing the purl on the wrong side opens up the eyelet more. I did it with a knit on the wrong side, and I was like, if I knit on the wrong side, the vibe of it is still the same, but the eyelet just isn't as open. And so I decided I'm going to do the pattern, and I'm going to do 3 purl rows in a row. And so I've been doing that. I'm only on, I have 9 contrast colors to get through. So you see this deep purple here is my main color on this part of the shawl. And then I'm going to, you basically repeat all of these contrast colors in reverse. And this is Tacky Lights. I just finished this one. And then you do a stripe of the main color, and then you do stripe of the contrast color. So it's going to be another set of eyelet rows with the purple, and then an eyelet row with this black, then the blue. And so it goes backwards with this purple being the background color. And so just going to keep chugging along, I guess. It's not so bad, especially if I just take it one set at a time. Like, the idea of just using these minis and doing, little chunks of color help it along a little bit more. And it is a pretty, I'm at the point now where I have all these stitch markers and I can pretty much memorize the lace. It's it looks kind of like a feather and fan, but I was doing some research and I believe it's called an old Shawl, Shale. And it's going to be great once it's done, because I told you the other pattern I was looking at, or the other project I was looking at, they knit all their stitches. So the whole bottom was, or did they, I forget how the person did their pattern. But they just ended up with, I believe, more stockinette on it. I think, I don't remember. I'm feeling kind of tired. Sorry if I'm a little, but that's that. I'm going to do the purling, but I'm just going to take it nice and slow. Mostly what I've been focusing on this week is my exploration station. I told you I've been working these 2 shawls in tandem with one another. And I was, kind of bouncing back and forth, but I kind of went pretty heavy on the exploration station this week. And last time y'all saw this, I was on the brioche section, and now I need like 60-inch cords on this is the 40-inch cat Chowgu. I was on the brioche, and now I'm down at the slip stitch. I think he calls it sassy slips, this section here. Finished the brioche. I'm quite happy with the brioche. I told you I'm not a fan of the actual act of knitting brioche, and I definitely had some hiccups, but the end effect is real nice. This slip stitch pattern, y'all know Stephen West is my absolute favorite designer. For me, yeah, this is coming with love. Not a big fan of the slip stitch section. It is, I had a hard time looking at not only his pattern pictures, but other people's projects to actually figure out what was happening in this section. Like, there's not a lot of, and maybe because it's like more variegated yarn, like if this was like, if I found like a black and white exploration station, it would be a little bit more obvious, but I just feel like it looks kind of like, it feels kind of like a throwaway section to me. Like, it's not very fun to knit, and the final effect is not effective. Like the brioche, like I don't like knitting brioche, but I'm like, oh wow, that's bold. But this is like, you're doing a slip stitch, so you're doing like knits and purls, and you're slipping stitches every other row. And it's an interesting texture. I just don't like it in the context of this shawl, and I just felt like there was so much momentum, like literal momentum building with these wedges. And then you get into the brioche, and then this feels kind of like um, I would have been a bit, this was one of the mystery knit alongs one year, and I would have lost a lot of steam in this section had I been doing this as a mystery knit along. Um, yeah, I just don't think it's super effective, but it might be my color choice. But like I said, I've looked at other people's projects and I'm just like, what am I even looking at? I don't know. One of the biggest things I love about Stephen West is that he very much, when I read his patterns, he feels like a knitter's knitter. Like he's writing the pattern in such a way that makes it kind of fun and rhythmic and interesting to knit. And this just feels kind of like tedious. But I am almost done, and I have been powering through it this week. I have 2 more rows with my color D, and then you get 1 more stripe of your color A, and then it goes into, it just ends with stripes. So you have the wedges going back and forth, then you go into the brioche, then you have the slip stitches, and it's all broken up by these stripes and eyelets of your color A. And then you stripe, I'm so sorry guys, I'm just, whew. You stripe, you do brioche with, oh my God. We'll have to edit this part. You do brioche with your color B and C. Then I'm doing the slips with color C and D. It doesn't matter the letters. So basically what you're doing is you're taking all of the different colors and matching them up, this color 1 and 2 with together, then 2 and 3 together, then 3 and 4 together. And then it just ends with stripes, and then you do chevrons and then a cast off. That's all I'm trying to say. And so, yeah, it just kind of feels like the momentum kind of got lost, and it's a little anticlimactic is the word I'm looking for. So that's that. All right, I'm going to wrap this up soon. I've got some shopping I did, if y'all want to stick around for that. I had $50 gift certificate to Scrap RVA, which is my local crafts thrift store. And I've been following them on Instagram, watching, when things come in so that I know when to strike with my gift card. And the other day they had some yarns in, and I was like, I can't really tell what's happening in the picture, but this looks like it might be a thing. And it's been really nice outside, so I decided to get out of the office and just do a little shopping. And boy, oh boy, am I glad I did. So the first thing that happened, this is my whole purchase here. And I see this wall, and it has all these different rainbow colors. And I pick up a skein, and this guy here says Spin Cycle yarn, and it's got our little pirate sheep here. And my heart skipped a beat because in case y'all don't know, Spin Cycle is quite expensive. It's very unique dyes. It's kind of gives the feeling that mimics hand spun, and I've always wanted to try it, but it's just a little bit out of my price range to try. And so this is a skein of metamorphic Spin Cycle yarns. Is 100% fine wool. They say it's a DK weight, and it's 400 yards of a DK weight. So I don't know if that's a DK. I'll have to weigh it and see how much, but it feels like 100 grams. So probably more of a sport weight, I would say. And this is the colorway Blueberry. And they had some other colors. They weren't really in my palette or complementary to stuff that I had in my stash, but I felt like this color pretty neutral. And as I said, it mimics the style of hand spun yarn. And so very cool to see this kind of match up with some of my hand spun, because a lot of my hand spun is that kind of vague, like kind of DK-ish, sport-ish. Then another yarn y'all know I've been wanting to try forever. I've mentioned it nonstop, and so it's like, oh, check the box of my goals for the year. They had some linen quill from Pearl Soho, which is an online store. So I was just like, it was always kind of like, oh, what do I order? What colors do I get? I don't know. I want to really touch it and feel it in person. And so I got 2 balls of this. This is all they had. This is linen quill, 439 yards of a fingering weight. Oh, the color is sweet potato. I say that's pretty fitting. And this yarn is 50% Highland wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen. And I've heard nothing but great things about this yarn. I was thinking I was going to make my first long sleeve ranunculus with this. And then I was watching someone on YouTube and they were saying that this yarn does not wear very well. It's not very durable, and they would only use it for shawls. And so I'm going to have to kind of think about what I want to do. It's like a 2-ply, so I could see it pilling a lot. But I don't mind pills so much, so maybe, we'll see. And then they had some linen quill good wool, which on the website they say it's kind of like a heavy DK light worsted. And this color would go very nicely with a color work project I'm working on. And so even though it's pretty thin and the other colors I'm working with are worsted, I think I'm going to at least try to swatch with this because I think the color would work well. Or maybe, I guess I could hold it double too. So that's what I got that for. Then I had a gift card, so I wanted like, let me finish this gift card up. And so I just grabbed, they had some Cascade 220. Yellow is my favorite color. You can't really get this. 100% Highland wool, 4 weight. You guys know Cascade. I already have Cascade in my stash, so it can't hurt to have more colors of that. And then they had some Blue Sky fibers, which I did not read the label on this because I was thinking to myself, Blue Sky fibers, I think wool, 100% wool. And I was like, this kind of feels like really smooth for a wool. And I got it home and I realized that it's actually 50% superwash, it's 55% superwash, 45% organic cotton. And this is their sweater worsted yarn, which was like interesting that their sweater brand yarn has the cotton in it. But it was just funny because I was just commenting on how I don't see a lot of cotton blend, but maybe I just haven't been looking for it or reading for it. And I think this would just make a nice one-off baby sweater, the cotton and the yarn, the cotton and the wool together. Maybe next time a baby's born, because I found when my sister-in-law was pregnant, I made her baby a little cardigan, and one skein of worsted wool is perfect, just for like a little bolero, and it had like puff sleeves. This will make one of those. And then last but certainly not least, I wanted to show y'all a library book that I got. Because, what's a knitting YouTube channel without book recommendations? And this is Knitting in National Parks. I'm sure y'all have seen this book before. It's by Nancy Bates. And I'm not a big national park person. I could see how, if you love national parks, you love knitting, that's Nancy Bates' story. But the thing that's so cool to me is I was thinking, I got it from the library just because I was like, I don't have a personal connection. Like, I love the national park system. I think it's really, really great. But I haven't been to any of these places before, and so I don't really have a personal connection. Oh, actually, I have been. I've seen the sequoias in California. But the thing that's most interesting to me about this is because I was assuming because the book basically has a picture of the national park and then a picture of the hat, and the hat goes with the national park. And I was thinking it was just going to be kind of like the cover, just a bunch of color work, which is great. I love color work. But she actually goes pretty deep into like interpreting these different landscapes with like the cables or trees, or the baubles or different structures, and just the idea of taking a picture of a landscape or a place and using different, not only color work techniques, but also different knitting techniques. There's mosaic, there's stranded color work, but then on top of that doing, like I said, baubles or cables or, slip stitches, is really, really cool. And so I just like, if you're just like like this is the redwood, and she's got some texture for the trees and some texture for like the bark on the trees. And then she's got some lace and the light coming through with the lace. I just think the idea of that is very interesting. And so mostly just an inspirational thing. And if you like national parks, or if you're watching this and you're not a knitter, I think the book is just worth looking at, because I just think it's really cool to look at a picture of something and see how someone can interpret that in yarn. You can see how someone would paint a landscape, or write a poem about a book, or write a poem about a place, or a book about a place. But the idea of taking yarn and interpreting a place, I think, is really, really cool, and charting it all out. Yeah, like she's got Denali, and like she tells you all the colors she used, and like just how someone can look at a picture of a place and pull out certain colors. Like the Grand Canyon hat, you would think, okay, just make an orange hat with some some pearl bumps in it, and she really pulls out some really interesting colors. So that's that book. I'm gonna get out of your faces because I'm pretty tired. If you liked this, like this video, you can follow me at Rulude on Instagram. That's where you can see the whole process of me spinning that yarn in the opposite direction. You can also send me an email, candibknittin@gmail.com. What else? I'm on Ko-fi, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm out here. I'll be at a yarn swap tomorrow in downtown Richmond. Gary Knits, Gary Rides on Instagram. I'd never realized he had a YouTube channel, and I was literally watching his YouTube channel for the first time this week, and he was talking about being hit harder by daylight savings this time this year, worse than any other year. And I 100% agree with him. I'm just like, yes, I don't know. There's feels different this year. So let me know. Are you absolutely exhausted? Till next time. Peace.